Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real.
Greetings and salutations, all my friends out there in internet land. How are you all doing today? Welcome to the Black USA News Morning Show, and I am the host, William Honolulu Jr. It's a privilege and an honor every day, and I welcome you. And today we're going to have a really great conversation. You all know I get excited about talking about, well, a lot of stuff because y'all know how I am. But we're going to talk today about education. You know how I feel about that. Like, education not only is central to the transition of lots of our communities into better economic and socioeconomic status, but it's also critically important that we understand the properties of education and how the power dynamics in the industry, not in the educational product. Be clear, there's a lot of levels to this. We need to understand who is who in the educational industry, who holds power, because that is the type of power that gets wielded over our kids. See, the thing that we need to understand is that some of these races that aren't as sexy, let's be honest, and I'm comfortable that my guest today will agree that her race isn't the sexiest. It's incredibly historic, but it's not sexy. There's not enough controversy around it right now to make people want to get involved. Not like a governor's race, PG versus the PG suburbs versus Montgomery County versus Baltimore. People get excited about that because it's dramatic. It's unusual. But your life, our lives, are very seldom significantly impacted by the dramatic. We recognize the impact of the dramatic, but the day-to-day shapes life so much more. My car breaks down one day and it's out of commission and I missed the meeting. Actually, this happened. Okay, happened recently. You know, I'm working through. I appreciate you all joining me on my mental health and self-discovery journey. But my car broke down. I missed the meeting. I was supposed to go see my mom. I couldn't get down there. I was so upset. I was bothered, and cost me about $800. But that is not as impactful, that one thing, as people who don't have a car to begin with. That all of their decisions are limited by the resources that they have. And so the people who decide the resource, not who approves the big budget, but who get to decide what money goes into which classrooms, those are the people that exercise power over your children. And that's why it's important for us to get some of these down ballot races. But you know what else? At every show, I got to say thank you to my crew, the super producer, Kyle Crazy Horse Morgan, and our assistant producer, Brandy Raymar. Actually, this conversation, this entire series on down ballot races was inspired by Crazy Horse, because he was like, you know, because his father was Earl Morgan was an amazing man. He was an incredible journalist in Jersey, exposed political corruption across the board. And he was talking about how he, one of the things that his dad used to always talk about is how he would talk to the aldermen or the people who were running for like dog catcher or whatever. I don't think there really was a dog catcher. I think that, again, but it's Jersey, so it could be a Jersey. And for those of you all who mad in Jersey, I mean, I understand you live in Jersey. Sorry. Y'all know I love y'all. Right. Some of my best friends are from New Jersey. But anyway, he was talking about how his dad would talk to like these people at the lower levels when they got elected, and he started realizing how much power they had. Like these people, like, you know, you talk about the Maryland's $33 billion budget or $13 billion budget, whatever. And after $1 billion is just numbers. But you talk about this budget, but again, who is deciding how much teachers get reimbursed for supplies? That impacts my son's classroom. The billions of dollars, that's good in a very esoteric policy debate, but who gets hand sanitizer, air conditioning, those types of things? So show notes. You know what? I gotta be honest, my team, we need to update my show notes, especially with this education series and politics, because I realize I'm going to be too excited to remember to say all the stuff I'm supposed to say. So let me get back to my notes. Excuse me. Also, want to say a big shout out to my personal assistant, because I need somebody to take care of me. Grace Awaka doing a wonderful job helping me stay focused and helping us all move forward. So, oh, don't forget, and you'll hear about it often. We're working with Breadcoin. Let me show you their flyer. Breadcoin is an alternate payment system for people who may be dealing with food insecurity. Thing I love about Breadcoin, I tell you this all the time, is that it allows people to address issues of food insecurity and at the same time maintain their dignity. Because when you go into these participating restaurants, these restaurants are members of the community. They have been engaged, they have been vetted. And when you pay with Breadcoin, they don't know whether you're unstably housed, whether it was your donation. They don't know why. And you get to sit in a restaurant like everybody else and eat with dignity. There are a lot of people who mean so well. They really do. And I'm not taking anything away from people who even the selfie people, the ones I'm talking about, who go out and help people but take a selfie every time. I'm not even taking anything away from them, because while it's not my brand and I think it's a little self-absorbed, what I do realize is that there are some people who won't even think about going to volunteer until they see somebody do that. So I appreciate it. I'm not knocking them. And we all have our place in this. But to be able to engage, to know that you are more than your circumstance, to be able to be treated like a human being, I think that we don't put enough value on that. And any organization that's out that is doing that in our community, I am all about that life. So Breadcoin. If you all have opportunity, go look them up, breadcoin.org. And like I said, you'll be hearing a lot more about them and their partnership with BlackUSA.news. All right. Is that all the show notes? Are we good? Okay. Now it's time to start. So I already so I'm gonna tell you, I did warn her that I have very particular beliefs about education and stuff like that. And again, let me put this out there. My beliefs are mine, not hers. She's running for office, and I don't know if how she's going to handle, some of the conversation, but she seems like a fighter. I have had an opportunity to do a little bit of research on her, and I like what I've seen. I like the fact that she believes in agency, especially when it comes to Black youth. A lot of times we want to tell them how to be adults without giving them opportunities to experience it in a safe and supportive environment, and then get confused why when they're 18, they can't just make all the decisions and do everything right. I'm gonna bring her in before I just finish talking, and then she's like, what? Okay. All right, so without further ado, I'm bringing you Ash Esposito. Hello! You're muted. Okay, there we go. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Like I told you backstage, and I will continue to say, I am impressed with those who decide the courage necessary just to put yourself in front of the voting public, literally to be judged. It takes either a lot of courage or a lot of stupidity. Looking at your writing, I'm going to give you courage right now. We'll assess it later. Right now, you got courage. But no, seriously, it takes a lot of courage to just and to run a campaign, and especially when you actually care. This is easier if you think of it as a job interview, as opposed to like you are trying to put yourself in a position where you can benefit and help change people's lives. There's a more solemn and a greater level of gravitas, at least for me. So let me, because I got a lot to say. That's why I got a whole show. So, but I invited you here to tell people about you. So I'm going to give you the floor to tell them about you, about your campaign, and what you stand for.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, I am somebody that is not a politician. Like, this is my first time running. In the past, like when people have suggested that I run for things, because I do like a lot of community work, and like I've just been working, raising hell and at the Maryland General Assembly and stuff. So, but I've never wanted to run. I don't like it. I'm used to being part of like coalition groups, and so this was definitely very different to like step out from that and like be the candidate, especially because like at the end, if I'm being real, like I'm a very flawed person, but that's kind of like what inspired me to run, because I don't come from a pedigree. I'm not polished. But a lot of my journey and what I experienced with like education is what compelled me to run, like really resonating with like some of the kids that are most impacted. So I'm somebody that has learning disabilities, and I also have a adverse childhood experience score of 7 out of 10. Like we grew up with a single mom, you know, did her
Yeah.
best. And you know, it's just difficult to, you know, give everybody, assume that if you give everybody the same resources that they're all going to excel,
Woo.
first of all, especially when there's like barriers to them even being present in the classroom. You know, during the time period that I was in foster care, um, I had like some serious like trauma going on. So, you know, I was one of those kids that had like outbursts. And, you know, when we're talking about the school to prison pipeline, the fact that I escaped it combined with learning disabilities, like it's nothing that I did. I didn't, you know, I wasn't somebody that I hate the term like pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Like that makes me cringe. What really was effective is that I went to a school that had a school-based wellness center. So rather than being, you know, arrested or um, suspended or anything, I could go there, get
Time,
therapy.
time, 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 time.
Oh,
So
sorry.
we have a tradition here. Okay, there are so many stories about where, especially in education, where the system has failed. That honestly, you put school system failed, like you will get billions of hits on Google. And so whenever there is an opportunity to talk about something that worked, like we stop everything and we shout them out. So shout out your school and the wellness center, because it's special. Okay, so this y'all, okay, like this is gonna be never one of those shows I'm comfortable. I'm gonna get fined. We're probably gonna go over time, and there's a lot, because like everything that you said like has resonated with all of the work I've been doing in the last 5 years. And it's really funny that you're the first person to come and interview in this series with me. And like, I couldn't have scripted you better. Like if we had spent time, it's like, I want you to say this. I want you to say that. I want you to say this. It would, I swear to you, I would, some of the things, the way that you presented them, I would not have even thought of, but they align so wonderfully. So one, thank you. I am grateful to you. And not this time, not just for the Courage for Running, but for taking your experience and giving voice to those who may have similar experience, but not the voice. So sorry, because we got to shout them. They kept you out of jail and out of dead. So we're going to say thank you to them real big.
Yeah. And I mean, like, cause there's people that I hung out with, that I lived with in different like households or like, roommates and things like that, that did not end up the way that I have. Some of them are incarcerated on some like serious things. Some of them are dead. Some of them dealt with addiction. Like there's so many things, possibilities that could have happened. That's why I don't, you know, take credit for like the path that I ended up on, because, you know, what did help me is like the adults that were around me that were persistent. Whenever they presented resources to me, I wasn't always ready to receive them. And for me, one of the things that I really leaned into in high school was my art class. And, you know, now that I'm an adult, I look back on it like reflective, and I'm like, that art teacher had the instinct to almost like put me in an environment where I had art therapy. And actually my senior year, she actually gave me, like, there was like this whole art thing that they were doing in the school, and she actually gave me my own hallway to present my work.
Wow. What school was
So
this?
this is in Delaware, William
Okay.
Penn High School. Yeah.
Big up to William Penn High School. Big up to them. Like that sounds wonderful. It sounds like, you know, when you have, and people often talk about the value of a caring adult in a young person's life. I will, again, my philosophy, not yours. Caring adults sometimes can be more dangerous than competent adults, because what you described is not just someone who cared about you, but someone who is competent enough by accident or by training or whatever to understand and be able to see those things that you needed that may fall outside of the curriculum. Because painting a hallway is probably not one of those official curricular kind of activities, but understanding that there is something beyond curricula that will help, that will transform a child's life. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, simultaneously, like, so while I was thriving in art class and like really living my best life, like, there were, like, when I graduated high school, I graduated with a cumulative GPA of 1.4. And I had to go to night school to get that 1.4 GPA. And so, in my other classes, I think that, like, there's something that just passed in Maryland. I think it's called Handle with Care Act, which is like a directive for kids that are in school. If they're going through something serious, it's a directive to like the administration in the school to handle them with care. I just found out about it. And interestingly enough, the school that I went to actually had that, but not an act. They didn't have to pass legislation. But when I went into foster care, they actually contacted like some of my teachers and stuff. And they were like, hey, the student's going through something serious. So, if she needs to leave, like, let her leave. You know what I mean? Like, so there was good enough communication in my school to kind of like tell the whole story, because like, I really struggled, like, not just with having learning disabilities, because being dyslexic and not knowing that I was dyslexic. So I mean, even that, like, self-esteem wise, was just a struggle, like, because I just felt like I was looking around the classroom, looking at everybody else just being
It
able
must
to
be
do
me.
well. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm missing classes. Like, if these people are taking like classes that I never took before, or what is wrong with me? Like, and so, we put a lot of pressure on kids to like advocate for themselves, but that, I feel like that's so irresponsible. Like,
All right.
because at that age, like, you just can't, it's hard to
Yeah, that's
process
not
all
for
that.
you. So now William philosophy time. Agency is not something that people know. Agency is a skill that people develop. The best way, in my experience, to help a child particularly develop agency is to give them experience making big decisions, or escalating degrees of difficulty or degrees of severity in their decisions in a supportive environment.
Yeah.
Like when you so one of the things that I work with some schools on developing tutoring programs, particularly in the STEM and the STEAM areas. And one of the things that we do, excuse me, I realize I'm about to start talking a lot. I get it moisturized. One of the things that we do is that we let the students pick what they learn. We don't just give them a textbook and say it. We do a diagnostic, because we're professionals. We do the diagnostic. We give you an opportunity to see the areas that the diagnostic says you need additional help in. But then we give the opportunity to you to determine what it is that you want to learn. Now, if there's a scope and sequence that has to happen, we should be able to explain that. Because if we can't explain that, then why are we doing that?
Yes.
But it is this pocket place where you can explain, you give them the opportunity to make the decision and explain to you how they came to the decision, why these things are important. And in that way, we give them the opportunity to develop this type of agency so that they can be advocates for themselves. How the hell are you supposed to know how to advocate for yourself when you don't understand the damn system? Stupid.
And also, like, just the audacity of like trying to like make every kid have one type of curriculum, like one path. Like, because this will blow your mind. So even
oh my God, I am so happy with you right now. Go ahead.
Okay. So even though I had, on paper, I was a terrible student who ironically happened to test well. So when it came to like testing, when I was diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD, I actually scored very, very high on something called perceptual reasoning skills.
Yes.
And so I think that that's what made me test well, in contrast with like what my actual grades were. But when I graduated high school, this is where it gets crazy. I actually taught myself programming languages, and I can program and code better than I can read.
Yes.
Like, that's all I needed. That's all I needed.
But here is what you are describing. So some of that experience I've had similar. Although the issue for me is that I'm neuroatypical, and people identified that early enough, and then started funneling me into these things where, the church, you get to speak and you have to read and you have to do all these things. So what ended up happening for me that made the difference was all of the support, because I was the person you could be proud of. I was the next blah, blah, whatever. But I also recognize that through that process, there was an opportunity for me to get lost. There was a lot of development that I didn't do because people just assumed that I knew how to.
Yeah.
They just kind of gave that to it because the audacity of the incongruence with the idea that our curriculum you have mastered, but that's all you need. It's like, no, the social emotional side was a train wreck for me.
Yeah.
And when left to my own devices, that's actually how I learned. I learned because talking to people and engaging them that way was challenging because my brain processed differently. But left to my own devices, I taught myself programming. I taught myself like in different languages, but it's that experience that you're talking about that is not even part of the conversation in many of these rooms. Because the people who are, the people who are going to are the perfect politicians. They are the ones that speak incredibly well. When you look at, especially the attacks from some of the conservative base or some of the establishment base, it is the attack on the novelty, or not the novelty, the noviceness. It's like, oh, not well refined, doesn't, and that's part of the problem. You all want to look good instead of actually being good. And one of the things, if you don't have these experiences, you tend to be a poor advocate because you're talking about what you think, not about what you know. So
sometimes people that do have the credentials get so caught up in their titles and what they've learned, like in college and how academia is done, like, which is, there's a lot of issues with it. So they because they have like those credentials, they're very dismissive of lived experience. And so when it doesn't fit into like their understanding of like how,
then it's problematic by itself.
Yeah. And that's why, like, for me, community engagement is like the piece that my expertise that I can bring to the table, because I believe in letting people speak for themselves and giving opportunities for them to have participation and have participatory decision-making models. Like if we're talking about policy, there is no reason that the general public or parents or students should not be able to vote real time on things that are really important decisions. Like they have so much access to every single person that goes into the school. There is no reason why they can't ask them their opinion every time.
Well, and the thing is that, let's be clear, and this go another one of my theories about education is that you assume that the benefit of the public is what they're going for. Why would they? Because in a lot of the training that they've done, the good of the public has been conflated with the data that they collect. And so as you talk about, again, well-meaning people, and I don't want to take that away from them, but the way that they've been socialized, the way that they've been trained, there's this incongruence between lived experience and data. They tend not to have the people who can make those things harmonize. They like your situation would have blown a lot of the leadership's mind just on data. Like, she tests well, but her grades are bad. And so what happens is, and this is where, and again, I don't ascribe arrogance until I've met you. I will ascribe ignorance to you very quickly, but I will not ascribe arrogance, because at the point that it is arrogance, now I need to humble you, and it's not just sharing information. It is now this competition piece. So I assume that they're ignorant. And the thing that I think that they're ignorant about is this conversation about lived experiences. And so what happens is that based on their training, they have these stories in their head. Good students have good grades and good test scores.
Yeah.
So and then it becomes this matrix, and bad students have bad grades and bad test scores. And then you got these matrix along the way. And so when they see your grades with your test scores, then they, whatever story they are predetermined or have predisposed to becomes your story. Oh, this is because she's lazy.
Yes, that's exactly what they said.
This is because she doesn't come to school. This is because she's poor. This is because she's foster care. And when you come to the conclusions in those stories, you cut off all of the opportunity. So everybody who came to that conclusion in your story, they cut off the opportunity for them to pour into you, to help you with more resources. But well, she's lazy and it doesn't make sense putting money into a lazy student. When she figures it out, not like, hey, maybe we should support her and ask more questions. So all of that. And again, I realize this is really your interview, not mine. And, anyway. So talk to me. There's some things that you've said that I just want to highlight as it leads into the next question. You've talked about having adverse home situations, a learning disability, being a ward of foster care. You also talked about how the Handle with Care program, and then you talked about your community work.
Yes.
In the midst of that, and you talked about this idea of community, and this is a working theory I have, and just want to see if it fits kind of your motives. Many of us who come from traumatic backgrounds, I've been a business consultant for 20 years. I've done political consulting and different types of things. And one of the things I find is that people who are from adverse home situations, or who are from disinvested communities, when they are putting together their business models, or when they're putting together any of their professional efforts, part of it always includes this desire to give back.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, and so we decry politicians who just show up during election time. So let's be clear about that. That's how we get down. One of the things that I want you to talk about is about your community work and how your circumstances have led you to the engagement that you've been able to maintain.
Yeah. So like just historically, like I think when I was in foster care, I actually like found my voice. And like, just to be clear, I wasn't in foster care my whole life. Like
Right.
it was just a period of time, towards the end of high school and stuff. So it was probably like the worst time. But during that time, there was a lot of like harm that happened, like just with the system itself to me and people that I lived with. And so I think that I'm just the type of person, even though I was like painfully shy and very, very quiet, I went ham because I was so harmed that I didn't want it to happen to anybody else. So that's what really like drives a lot of my advocacy work. And then as far as my community work, I feel like that comes from a place of not wanting to be out of community. Because I when I see communities out of community with each other, not on a first name basis, that's where a lot of like the dysfunction, the toxic environment comes from, which leads to mental health issues and, just not being able to like support each other. Because like at the end of the day, like communities, it's like if individual communities could make it work and neighbors were helping neighbors, a lot of the biggest issues are solved at a hyper local level to me.
Yes. Because a lot of the issues, most of the issues that predominate people's attention span are personal.
Yeah.
And so if you don't take into consideration the personal nature of the human interaction, you're going to miss a lot of opportunity. They're now statistics. They're voters. They're not people anymore. They're students. You dehumanize them by these categories, and then you start treating them like the data that they have become.
Yeah, and I just think that us as a society, like in our communities and in our neighborhoods, like we've gotten so used to like leading with our labels, and also we're more, we move around a lot more than we probably did back in the day, and so there's just like a disconnect that I see, because I grew up in a really, really small town, like when I was a kid in Arizona. And so, I can think of like times where like the community really like supported me and my family and my sisters. And, we were able to, like, our school, it was only like 1,300 people.
Okay.
But,
your old school?
Yeah. Like this is kindergarten through 8th grade in Arizona.
Oh, wow. Like not like your high school.
Before I moved to the East Coast. No, this is
wow.
before I moved to the East Coast. Yeah.
So the whole like school, like the wow.
The whole
like
town.
You have a school that has more students than that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that reference point. Okay.
Yeah. So like me and, everybody in that town was probably like 4 or whatever, but we didn't know it. Like, and a lot of the stuff that our school did, like had after school programs and like summer programs, all of us for some reason in that community were amazing track athletes. I think because we had so much like desert and stuff, and so we were all competitive, and we all like grew up together. So but that's my point of reference for like community, and first things first, it's just getting on a first name basis. And that's kind of like what I've lived in my own neighborhood, is just just keeping it like simple, like talking to people, like sharing, like the things that you learn as a kid that are just
you're crazy here. You're just crazy.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of the actual projects or activities or the work that you've done in Baltimore, because let's be clear. I am not a Baltimore native. It's so funny. I've been here longer than I haven't, but I still need somebody to co-sign. So just to let people know, both of my sons went to the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. So I have Baltimore credibility now. Okay, so but that's a very real thing in Baltimore, because people are like, well, who are you? Are you another one of these New Yorkers or someplace else who's going to come and fix us? But I want to know about how much you're not just talking about it, you've done the work.
Yeah. So I'm like, people have a hard time like gauging like how old I am too. I'm 37, but I've been in I'm just putting it out there because sometimes people will be like, you're too young. Or like, I don't know. I'm like, y'all, I got gray hair. Leave me alone. So yeah, like I moved to Baltimore in 2016, but I had been in Maryland since 2008. And when it was time for us to like buy a home, like we wanted to buy in Baltimore just because I loved it. I mean, my sister was in the art scene, and I'd always like been in Baltimore, but I never lived in Baltimore. But so we bought a house in Violettville, and part of the reason why we bought here is because the school was like right up the street. Like when I'm thinking of my own like dream, like American dream, like being able to like, we didn't even have kids at the time, but when I was like, oh, we could have kids and walk them to school, and just my need for like stability and just simple like a simple environment to live in. Yeah, but I was happy to live here in the neighborhood that I lived in, or that I still live in. I just saw some things that like needed fixing, and me and one of my friends had got together and created this neighborhood wellness association called Village of Violettville Inc., which is kind of an unassociation. It's a community association, but there's a lot of flaws with the community association model. A lot of flaws. And so we kind of like looked at all the things wrong with it and tried to do the opposite. For example, like, when it comes to development deals, community associations can give something on letterhead as a letter of support, and they only represent a small fraction of the actual community, right? So what we do instead is we put out a survey. If it's a big thing, like we will go door to door.
Wait, were you with that whole Royal Farms or
Yes.
Wawa thing? Okay, all right, okay, I remember that. Go ahead with your band.
So we actually like killed the Royal Farms deal, which is, I mean, it's good. It was literally the biggest Royal Farms I've ever seen in my life. So it was going to be like a rest stop. And at the end of the day, like I said, we are very transparent. Like we were like, hey, we've been approached by Royal Farms. Here's the meeting date. Here's the meeting time. Everybody was there. Everybody could ask questions. Everybody had ample time to take the survey if they wanted to. Some people are like, I don't have an opinion one way or another.
Right.
So, but we at least make sure that we do the outreach and make enough time for people to participate, because even timelines are a barrier to people's participation. So so what we did is we did a survey, and we're like, yeah, everybody is like strongly opposed, so let's also do a petition to say no. Which people left feedback. People were organizing their own family members in the neighborhood and getting them to sign it and leave comments, and ultimately like the people spoke. And I know people are mad about it, and they're like, this isn't how these things work, but it was fair. It was like, we didn't want development happening to us, like we wanted it happening with us. And we actually met with the owner of the property, and we're like, look, this is what the neighborhood says that they want. Like, here's some things that were common themes that people were saying that they wanted at that site, or they want this around our neighborhood because we don't typically have it. If you guys would have met with us in advance, we could have told you in advance, and you wouldn't have had to like lose a deal and have this awkward conversation right now, So they worked with us, and actually we're going to end up getting the development that we asked for.
That is awesome.
So it works.
So let me, and again, I'm not. So let me be clear. This is the first time that you and I are meeting, so I want people to understand that. Especially what I'm about to say next. I was like, whoa, this sounds a little weird. So I've done the research in advance of this show, but I gotta say, I've been impressed with everything that you have talked about and described, primarily because it does have that community impact or that community feel from it. In each part of your discussion about your engagement and the things that you've actually done, not like one day, if I ever had an opportunity, this is what I'm doing. It's like, no, at the different levels, the different opportunities, I have done these things. I think those things combined provide an opportunity for you, if elected, to really bring voices to the table in a way that may not have been, this may not be commonplace in education in Baltimore. So to that, one of the things that politicians always like to say is that you got to make sure that you vote, make sure that your voice is heard. That's bullshit, because we've been voting for a long time and it still looks like this. So my question to every elected person who wants to be elected, who comes through the show, is, let's say we all come and vote for you. Everybody that is eligible to vote comes and votes for you. So you have an entire mandate.
Yeah.
What do you need us to do?
Honestly, two things. The way campaigns are run are a problem to me. Because when you talk about like campaigns, obviously there's a short timeline. So unless you're doing, I like, for me, like in the model that I've done in my community, if I were to replicate that citywide, I would need more time. You know what I mean? Because I would personally, I don't care if you're a voter, want to have contact information. Like if you know what I mean? Like I want you to have like a direct line of communication with me, because at the end of the day, I represent every single person in the city if I get elected. And I don't care if they're voters or non-voters. So, but intentionally, like campaigns don't reach out to non-voters or people that aren't.
No. Okay, so I don't want to do the campaign part. I'm talking about once you get elected. Once you get elected and you have a seat there, because the reality is, and I own this, there are a lot of people who are entrenched and currently benefit from the system that we have. Yeah. They do not want it to be changed. One, because they're not competent to act in a new system, one that is actually functional and can help students. So they're not even, if we had a system that was a good one, they wouldn't even be able to be a part of it. So they are invested. The other is that they don't believe that the students that they're serving are actually capable of it, especially because they got too many of them with learning disabilities and in foster care. Literally your demographic is one of the reasons that some of these people do not believe. And you as an example to show them, like, yes, all of those things being true, there's humanity and there's value. Your example as an elected official would be great. But again, I'm tired of us trying to pretend that it's on you. I'm tired of us pretending like, well, I voted, and so now why are my kids learning? I want you to tell me, when you get in office, what do you need us to do? Just what do we do on a regular basis? How do we, and especially because if we vote for you, we believe in your agenda. And we also know that there's a whole bunch of people that are going to try to stop this progressive agenda you're talking about. There's a lot of people who are going to actively, let's be clear, actively try to stop it. So what do you need us to do to push you forward or to make this happen?
First of all, like, people already know from like my community work that I'm going to do what I want to do. Like that's it. Like, and also I don't have political aspirations like this. I am a one and done. I also don't believe that I need to run again, because 4 years enough. If I can't do what I need to do in 4 years, I don't need to be chilling there for 8 years and hold up the seat, because each one of us brings a different perspective. And I'm not arrogant in the mindset that I need to sit there with that one perspective and keep making decisions for that extended period of time. So that's first. And then second of all, like, if I get elected, what I need people to do is show up. Well, first of all, the reason why I was talking about the campaign is because I want contact information and direct lines of communication to everyone.
Okay.
And people can speak for me. Like, when it comes to work that I've done with the city, I'm constantly pushing them to do intentional outreach to the folks that are least engaged. Do not rely on the community associations. Do not rely on the churches. Those are people that are already plugged into networks. Those are people that already know how to go about being the squeaky wheel. The folks that are the least likely to be engaged, those are who should be prioritized. So that's what I want to do. And like, people know how I intend to do things.
And one of the things is that, like, I can get a sense of who you are and how you are. But the problem is that unless the people that have had direct contact with you, they need to know as well, because up until today, you were just you were a name on a list someplace that is like, oh. But after talking to you today, I'm like, well, man, she got some good ideas. Let's see what else she got to say. And I want more people.
I think the only way to do that is kind of like how I did the community work. Like if I gotta take enough flyers for every single household in this city and make sure that they're in hands, I'll do that. Like that's what I want to do, because I know through the campaign, like the timeline that we're given to run a campaign, I can't reach all those folks. But I'm almost gonna be running a campaign after the campaign, if that makes sense. So
no, that does make sense, and it goes back to your community focus. The idea that you're not doing this for the votes, you're doing this because this is the way that it should be done.
Yeah, because regardless of the outcome of the race, like I'm still going to be around, and my intention is to like whoever I do have contact with, they're going to be coming with me. So whether I get the seat or not, like this is like creating a circle of accountability. And there's no reason why all of us that are running for this race, like running for these seats, I would be interested to see, like once everything's said and done, regardless of who the two are that actually take those seats, the other 6 of us should be actively involved in support of those folks and used as resources. You know what I mean? Like that's how I envision it, and that's how I would be if I don't get elected to anybody. Like they can reach back to me as a resource.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna be doing an outreach.
That's actually really progressive, and again, kind of goes to that you have a kind of a greater sense about this and not just getting the seat. So let's shift gears again.
And part of the reason, if I can share, like I have a son. And even though his upbringing is going to be totally different, like from mine, his, trajectory in life is going to be different. I tie his outcome to every single kid in Baltimore City. So it's not just about me serving, because some people are like, oh, your kid's not even in school yet. He'll be 2 at the end of July.
Now here's the question. Do you plan to send him to a Baltimore City public school?
Yeah, we bought our house to send him to the one right down the street.
I just want to make sure, because that's a question that I'm going to be asking people, because I got to be honest. I have challenges when you want to represent the kids in the school system, but you don't think the school system is valuable enough to risk your own kids in it. So
that's literally why I'm running now, because by the time this term is over, if I get elected, he'll be starting first grade. So that's like ideal, like, and also him not being a student yet. I think that like subconsciously, like when people have a personal experience, that becomes their platform. I don't have a personal experience in Baltimore City Public Schools. So that allows me the space to focus on everybody else's experience.
You're not focused on this. I'm trying to get I'm trying to resolve some issues with me.
Yeah, but fixing all the other issues for everybody else is a benefit to my son too. Like that's how I'm tired of like the people saying, I'll focus on my kid, you focus on your kid. These are our kids, all of them. Like we need to like move as like a collective, and any kid that has a terrible outcome should not be like overshadowed by a kid that's had the opposite. Like a success story is great and everything, but it doesn't mean anything if we have kids that are having a polar opposite experience.
Right. If the majority of students are having negative outcomes, celebrating the few that are having positive outcomes does not create evenness. No. So tell us about some of the other policy places or policy issues that you're going to champion as a member of the board.
Well, I definitely want to focus on the blueprint. So I just became a certified blueprint advocate through Strong Schools Maryland. So I really wanted to do a deep dive and fully understand like the intention of the funding, how much funding, the timeline, and I got all that information. So now I have, I'm a team leader in Baltimore City, and as I'm meeting people, I'm going to be recruiting them for my team. I believe one of the biggest teams that exists in Baltimore City is actually a sorority. And I think they have like 500 members like for that team for Strong Schools. So I want to, with a citywide situation, like we can get there.
That's awesome.
And those are just people that I want to be focused. I want to be able to tell them, like, this is rolling out, this is happening, like, and make sure that we do exactly what we're supposed to do with the funding.
Okay, so that's a great one. The blue ribbon. Anything else that any other policy areas that you want to focus on?
Yeah, definitely what we touched on before about accessibility and making sure that there's like different pathways for, like more individualized curriculum approaches. We definitely need to make sure that there's enough funding for like vocational programs,
Okay.
art programs, because, art and media and stuff like that is such a good career. And I think that, even my career field, like I'm in tech, so I have a degree in software development, and I potentially see like Baltimore City becoming a tech hub, which also requires like graphic designers, web designers, front end designers, and that's a very like artistic path. So I do see like all those things kind of overlapping, and I want to make sure that one, kids have exposure to those things from an early age, and also that there's enough funding for those programs because not every school has them. Also, I have major concerns about some of the school closures, the permanent school closures, because for me, like I said, I bought my house in my neighborhood because the school was so close. It was literally like a little dream. So when you take away a school, you disrupt a community. Like, you destabilize the housing market in the community. You take away a polling place in a community. You potentially take away a community hub. So I think that the permanent school closure should be an absolute last resort. And also, I want to go back and look at where the school closures were before and look at whether or not that was equitable and whether or not the schools need to be rebuilt in those same, like, we need to work it out and put that, because and I also have concerns about the schools that have been built that are 21st century schools, because some of them are already like struggling infrastructure wise. Yeah.
What's going on?
I'm not going to name the school because I'm not going to like put them on the spot.
If you send me the article, I'll name it later, or you tell me how to find it.
There's no article. I saw it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. There is no reason why a school built within like the last, maybe a little over 5 years, should have like floors buckling or no power to certain parts of the school, or not, some of the development wasn't done that was supposed to be done, and as a result the students lost programs. Like, there's so much foolishness. And I talked to some of the students, and we really connected because I told them I always lead with my truth and like my story and stuff, because I'm not scared to be vulnerable. I've been through tons of therapy to get to this point. And it's, telling them where I was coming from. I think that it really let them let their guard down and have like honest conversations with me. And one of the things that they said is they're like, oh, we know we go to a bad school. Like, we don't go to a Poly or a Mervo or a city. And, only time we ever hear about our school is if it's bad on the news. And, it's like, and one of the students was like, it's bad enough that we go to Baltimore City public schools, and even worse that we go to this school specifically.
Wow.
Yeah. So people aren't even considering the mental health impact that they're having when they're propping up and showcasing like all these other schools when the other ones are, falling behind. But also, I do know for a fact that some alternative schools were closed because they're trying to use the same metrics that they measure other schools
for a totally different population.
Totally different population. Like, you can't.
But and this kind of goes to, again, one of the other philosophies I have, and I was looking for this article, the mandatory school attendance rule, that has been around in the United States since 1647. It started in Massachusetts. They passed, and this is the name of the law. You ready? The law passed in Massachusetts in 1647. The Old Deluder Satan Act in 1647. The Old Deluder Satan Act. And the idea is that it was designed, they believe individuals should be able to read and interpret the Bible for themselves, and wanted to teach these students how to behave in proper Protestant society. It was and it put the responsibility on local jurisdictions to fund this, because they weren't looking to educate students at the time. These were the lower class, not even the gentry, not even landed people. These were the what they call them, street urchins. But they also realized if we can make them better at following directions, one, if we get them to believe in the Bible and follow the Bible, they will follow more of the social control. Yeah. If we get them to follow, if we get to teach them the things that make them marketable, we'll have better employees. And if you fast forward to the decisions that we make in curricula, why is everybody so into STEM? Is it because it is a great problem-solving modality that provides an opportunity for student mind expansion and to navigate through life? No, because it gets you better jobs. Why did we push college for a long time? Was it because it creates an individual thinker, a philosopher, and a person who can digest the world and make rational decisions? No, because it meant that you would follow directions better. And we knew that once you had a degree, and you would sit down in my office and write whatever paper I told you to write, because you've been conditioned to that for 16 years.
Yeah. Have you ever read The Racial Contract?
The Racial Contract?
Yeah.
No, ma'am, I have not. Please.
So I am in a book club where we've been looking at The Racial Contract, and
sorry,
it really.
Do you know a woman named Shamel?
The commissioner one?
No, Shamel.
Shamel. No.
Okay, cool. Because you said Violetville, Royal Farms, and book club, and that sounds like one of the most wonderful women in my world. My god, baby mama, Shamel. So I was like, let me just ask real quick just to check.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Racial Contract. So yeah, tell me about this book.
Yeah, so this book really like goes to the root of like white supremacy as a structure. And so I'm listening to it as an audio book, and it really, like, there's a section of the book that talks about when the Americas were like colonized and how they viewed like indigenous folks. And like my takeaway from all that was that the religious and the capitalist like mindset that was like being imposed on them, like they didn't see value in the way that those folks were living, and those folks were living in a way that we're trying to create now because we're hurting so bad. So the idea of community and these things that feel right to me stem from probably my ancestry. My ancestors are probably like pulling me back to a place that just instinctually is right. So like, yeah, The Racial Contract talks about like colonizing and how a lot of the structures that are in place now like were created as like a mechanism for white supremacy and like maintaining control when slavery was happening, and also like when we were transitioning away from slavery.
So
it's just crazy.
I'm gonna do something. You have the link to schedule an opportunity to come back and talk to. I would like to talk to you more. I appreciate, and again, not outside of the political pieces or what have you, whether whatever, but like on a regular basis, because I would really, I downloaded the book on Audible myself, and I would really, I'm going to listen to it. But I appreciate when people bring new stuff to the show, and again, not just because our philosophies align. Well, let me not lie. A lot of it is because our philosophies align, but the way that you present them, I think is not just appealing, but it resonates with people differently than my approach. And so I again, whenever you feel that you want to come on and talk about Royal Farms, community engagement, or race relations education, whatever, you are welcome to come back. So
thank you. Yeah. I mean, I love talking about this stuff because I know we can do better. Like, I know we can, but we just have to respect folks that aren't polished and aren't, in positions of power, like, so, I think I've heard most of the solutions for really tough problems in the community.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the problem though. If you got to create the rules of a game, if the fact that you are in the position to create the rules suggests that you know better than everyone. That is the idea. And that idea gets passed on intergenerationally. So the more you align with the established rules, you don't even begin to hear the hypocrisy in your own voice. And you know, we come back, especially if we're talking about racial issues or this book, The Racial Contract. The idea that this, I'm not sure if you've been following the replacement theory, the great replacement theory that a lot of the white extremists are dealing with. It is amazing to me that they can take this theory that can only exist out of context. Yeah. Because if you take this, it's made of like tissue paper and a little bit of humidity and the whole thing crumbles, because part of it is that you are legacy Americans and people are taking the country from you. So out of context, okay, but in context, either the country can't be taken away from you because immigration is a natural progression of the American system, or you're not legacy Americans because you took it from the people who were here before. Yeah. But only in this context, if we don't look at the past or the future, and this becomes part of the things around education about what gets taught. And so when you have people who are on these boards of education who want to maintain this place where they can put their eyes to say, no, don't look over there. You can't see. So you can't see over there. Back or forth. It's the replacement theory. That was, I looked at the screen when I did that. That was creepy. I apologize. I didn't know it was going to look like that.
It kind of looked like, who is that? The Hamburglar?
My fault. That was, I'm going to get a show note about that. That's okay. I know they're going to say, don't do that. Yeah. That's going to be the new, don't do that.
And you know, I will say, like, I know we're like running out of time and everything, but I will say that when it comes to folks on the other side, even people in my neighborhood can attest to this. I do have conversations with those folks. And what's interesting enough is that the same education system that is harming us has harmed them. So, like, you literally don't know what you don't know. Because, like I said, I lived in Arizona, like, when I was a kid. And when I moved to the East Coast, I got, like, a re-education. 100%, because I was representative of what is it, like 5% Black people in Arizona? So there was no reason to like amplify our stories and the truth and things like that. So when I came here and got like a crash course and was like, yeah, I was like, first of all, I was excited. Second of all, I realized I went through almost like a grieving period because, you know, being able to like see the truth and also digging into my family story. I'll have to tell you that sometime about my ancestry, because that's definitely a very interesting tale, like on all sides, like all my grandparents' stories.
You know what? So I'm gonna tell you what, she a good politician, even though she says she ain't one. She saved like a whole bunch of juicy stuff for the end. It's like, I'm just saying, you could have me back to talk about genealogy or race issues. I'm just saying, you ain't game recognized game, and you look like family.
Oh, okay. So I'm a talker.
All right, so we are out of time. I am so happy and grateful. Tell the people how they can get in. I'm gonna give you the whole screen by yourself. Tell them how they can get in contact with you and work with you to make your vision a reality.
Yeah, definitely subscribe to my newsletter on ashleyesposito.com. My newsletter, I send out like what's going on with the campaign, but I'll also be using that to plug you into other work that's being done. I've been a part of the Votes Coalition, and we just passed a bill to get the student member of the board more voting rights, and also create a commission that should be being solicited soon for appointments. But that commission basically studies the school board and will look for whether or not we need an additional student member and a bunch of other things that'll make our school board better. But yeah, I would love y'all to volunteer. Donations are great because yes, I don't come from lots of monies and things are expensive, supply chain issues. But yeah, I'm just happy to be able to connect with more folks. And if anybody wants to reach out, I will get back to you. You can send me an email anytime, any concerns that you have, and we will take care of them. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, I realized I had muted. Oh my goodness. I was sitting there talking like, I don't understand why she's not answering me. It's easy.
Oh.
Is this the right email address on the screen?
The website, yes.
Okay, cool.
www.
Website. Yeah. I apologize. So I want to make sure that people can find you. So check her out at Esposito.com.
Check out the platform. The platform is actually developed by people in the community who I had conversations
with. Okay. Again, she's not just talking about it. She say she be about it. So Ashley, thank you very much. And I'm looking again. You got the link. Whenever you are ready and comfortable having another interview, just click the link and join.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Yo, y'all know I know dope people, but I get to meet dope people too. Like, she's not even one of my friends. That's crazy, ain't it? Like, because normally a person that come and jive with me like that on some policy stuff, normally, I know them, we got some history or whatever. This is a brand new person. That's crazy. But I have had a wonderful time, and it's really important, again, whether you vote for Ashley or another candidate who is running for a school board, it is very, very important that you vote. It is very important that you ask them the critical questions that will make the difference in the success or failure of your students. We can't wait for somebody else to come and save us, because guess what? They're not coming. All right, we had a great time. Again, hit up Ashley Esposito, and we will be black tomorrow.